Hi, my name is George Coles, and I am an avid retro video game collector.
Do a barrel roll!
I have decided to document my journeys as I grow my collection. Please join me as I share with you my finds. Welcome to Retro Game Treasure Hunting. Hi everybody, and as the intro just said, my name is George Coles, and this is Retro Game Treasure Hunting. On this episode, we're going to talk about some of my new finds, how I found them, what they mean, and give a little bit of ratings. First up, we have NHLPA Hockey 1993, or just 93 as it says on here. So a 25-year-old hockey game. This is for the Sega Genesis. This one and the next game I have on here, I actually got off of eBay, and surprisingly, from Goodwill on eBay, which if you don't know is a thing. The two of them I got for rather cheap. Now, a lot of people that do retro game collecting don't do sports games. I do because I had this game and I love hockey and I'm a huge hockey fan. So if you know anything about sports games and you know anything about hockey games in particular, the Genesis and Super Nintendo of the time, EA hockey games, were some of the best hockey games that have ever been pulled out. One of the things that's interesting about this is the license is NHLPA, not the NHL. So you have the teams, you have the players, but not the team names or logos, which is kind of interesting. We'd kind of seen early on in the sporting games, we didn't automatically have team names with the correct players. A lot of times we'd have numbers and a city, or we'd have the team logo but not the correct player names, or vice versa. And this was kind of one of those examples. I think it's interesting. Another thing that's interesting is the level of violence in this game. Watching this in a 2018, knowing where hockey has come since then, there's a lot. The game hyped up the violence, kind of like the old Madden games with the ambulance and stretcher. This one, you would get knocked out and blood would go all over the ice. Fighting was a prevalent part of this. Checking was definitely a major part of the game. So all that was kind of interesting playing it back now with 2018 eyes, looking at a 1992 game, because it came out in 92, although it's for the 92-93 season. All I can say is this is the classic Sega hockey game. Now, if you had it on Super Nintendo, some people prefer the Super Nintendo versions. I prefer the Genesis versions. I just think the controllers are better for this style of game. And could be it's because what I had at the time, so maybe it's a little bit of nostalgic feel to it. But I still feel today that playing these on a Genesis controller is a little bit better, in my opinion, than the Nintendo controller. With all that being said, like I said, I did get it from Goodwill on eBay. I paid less than $2 for this game. It was more to ship the two games that I got off of the Goodwill eBay store than it was for both games. That being said, you can pick this up cheaply, probably less than $5, as you can see. Here, I have it in box. I don't have the manual, but the box and the game are here, which is pretty good for a 25-year-old game, especially since a lot of people threw the boxes away on cartridge games. Now going into our ratings for it, graphic-wise, I'm going to give it a 3. It's on par with what you would see from the Genesis of that era of sporting games. I can't really knock it for not having superb graphics compared to today, but it didn't really push the limitations of the system either, so I gave it a 3. Gameplay-wise, I give it a 5. Like I said, these are some of the best hockey games that have ever been produced. and this one is definitely on that level. Difficulty, I give it a 4. It's not too hard. However, if you play with a lesser team, you'll know that you're playing with a lesser team, if you understand what I mean. You can't just pick any team and beat any other team. You kind of have to strategize with that. Replay value, I give it a 5. Although there's only basically 2 modes, a kind of exhibition and a tournament, which you get handed a championship that kind of looks like the Stanley Cup, but it isn't. So replay value, I give it a 5. Some people may not. It's definitely going to be a game that if you're playing with friends, if you got other friends that love hockey, that like old Genesis games, that it's going to be fun to play together. Music, I'm going to pass. I'm not going to give it a rating on the music. There is some hockey organ music in the game, but that's not what you're looking for in this, so I'm not going to rate it on that at all. Overall, I give this one a 4 out of 5. I think it's a very good hockey game. Like I said, one of the top quality hockey games that have ever been produced. Now, sticking with the theme, and as you guys have seen, I've been on a Nintendo GameCube kick, and I've been getting a lot of GameCube games. This also came from the Goodwill Online. This was also less than $2, so both these games were less than $4, and then it cost $4 to ship them. So I paid $8 for both of them. I absolutely hate Scott Stevens. I'm a Philadelphia Flyers fan. I had to grit my teeth and bear it to buy this game. If you don't know of the NHL Hitz, and by the way, it's NHL Hitz 2002, or 20-02, as it's sometimes stylized on the spine. If you're not familiar with these, this is kind of in the vein of NHL Blitz, which was a more popular series, mixed with a little bit of the NBA Jam style of gameplay. You would get on fire. It was classic arcade sports game. And it's a 3-on-3 thing. You pick your 3 players like you would in Jam, and you go out there and you play. One of the cool things that I thought in this game was if you got in a fight, the loser of the fight is eliminated for the rest of the game, which came into the strategy because you only had 6 players on each team. So if you lost 3 fights, you may have lost your 3 best players, which is kind of interesting. You could switch up lines between periods. There wasn't line changes, but it didn't really need it. I had a lot of fun playing it back. Again, like I said with the 93 game, there's a lot of violence in this, which in current hockey is kind of not really approved of. We did see that the NHLPA and NHL both approve of this, so we get the real players with the real jerseys and the real teams. I thoroughly liked it. It's a fun game. If you haven't played it before, it is dated. It will feel dated playing it. And I'm not just talking about the roster, I'm talking about everything about it. But other than that, I have a lot of fun with it. Again, it's another game that if you have friends that remember this era or play games with you, that you're going to have fun playing with them. Going into the ratings for it, graphic-wise, I give it a 3. Again, the graphics aren't terrible, but they're not pushing the limitations of the system. There are better sporting games graphic-wise on the system. Gameplay, I give it a 4. It is a fun game to play. Like I say, it will feel dated at times, but it's still extremely fun to play with the concept. Difficulty, I give it a 2. You can pick it up and play at any time. It's not difficult at all. Replay value, I give it a 3. It's not as good as a game as NHLPA 93, but it's still a fun game. A lot of replay value if you're going to play it with friends. If you're playing it alone, not too much. It gets repetitive really quickly. Music, I'm going to give it a pass again. Other than some organ music again, and the very dated new metal music that plays on the opening scenes, there's not really music to the game. There's not ambient music, which is when I review music for a game, that's what I'm talking about, is the ambient music as you play. Overall, I give it a 3. Not quite as good as NHLPA hockey, but still a fun game to play, still a fun game. Definitely a great game if you want to get together with some friends, have a couple beers, have a couple drinks, whatever you may do, and play some old GameCube. Now my next one, sticking with the GameCube theme, but coming out of the hockey theme, is Prince of Persia The Two Thrones. And this is a classic action-adventure game. It's the third of the Sands of Time series, which is a reboot of the original Prince of Persia series. It's the sixth Prince of Persia game overall. It's a very fun action-adventure game with puzzle games mixed in. I like it a lot. I think it's really cool. Kind of a precursor to what you would see with games like God of War coming after this and, carrying on this tradition. I think it's a fun game. Again, if I'm going to critique it a bit, there are some control issues. The controls don't hold up. It's kind of difficult. It's one of the games where the one analog, well, not the analog, but the C-stick moves the screen kind of like you're on a video. However, the analog or the direction moves you. So you have to kind of move both in a way that it was kind of, if you play games of this era, it's kind of before they figured out the dual analog to move you around and that everybody's used to now. So going back to that, it's difficult. It's not hard to pick up once you get into it a little bit. Once you understand how you're doing, you do get into it and it's easier to understand. But it's a little bit difficult to just pick up and play. That being said, let's go into our ratings for it. Graphic-wise, I give it a 3. The graphics are good. Again, they don't push the system limits. There's better graphic-wise action-adventure games on the system. It's kind of cut and paste with the Prince of Persia series. That being said, not a bad game. Gameplay-wise, I give it a 3 as well. Difficulty, I give it a 4. There is some elements that are very hard. There are some elements that are very easy. Replay value, I give it a 2. Once you play through it, you're not really going to go back to it much, maybe once a year, if that. Music-wise, for the first time this video, I get to review the music. It has some really good ambient music. I give the ambient music a 3. Overall, I say the game's a 3. If you like the Prince of Persia series, you'll like this game. And basically that's what it is. It's right in there. It's in that wheelhouse. If that's your kind of game, or action-adventure games are your game, that's what you can look forward to. I got this from my local shop, which is Flash Games, Comics, and Collectibles in Sebring, Florida. If you happen to go there or see them on Facebook, they are on Facebook, so you can see stuff. I'm pretty sure he'll ship stuff out to you. They're very nice people there. Really cool, really helpful. I picked this up, I believe it was $8, so it's still, like I said, a lot of the reason why I'm focusing right now on GameCube, more so than other games, is because of how cheap the games are. You could get really good games like this for a cheap price, less than $10. So I would hope that your local game store is similar, or if you find it through them, I recommend it. Now, my last game, I'm going to precursor this. It's kind of a retro game, but it's not a retro game. It's a remake. I also happened to get this at my local store and paid a little bit more for this, but you'll know why in a second. Night Trap for the Nintendo Switch. Now, I know what you're going to say to me. Night Trap is historically bad. This is a 25th anniversary edition made by Limited Run Games. I'm not going to say how much I spent on it because it is kind of a pricey game. Couple of reasons I wanted to get it. First off, is I don't have any Limited Run games. I'd like to have a few in my collection. Because if you're not familiar with what they do, it's exactly that. They're making limited run versions of games. Limited meaning a small number. And it's usually physical copies of a game that's been on like the Nintendo eShop or PlayStation, but hadn't had a physical copy yet. This is kind of special. And before we go much further, the second reason I bought it is because Howard Lincoln famously said, and I'm going to shoot to the video like everybody does on every one of these Night Trap reviews. Go ahead, Howard.
In the past year, some very violent and offensive games have reached the market. And of course, I'm speaking about Mortal Kombat and Night Trap. And let me say that for the record, I want to state that Night Trap will never appear on a Nintendo system.
Exactly. So that was the second reason I bought it. During his congressional hearing when they were coming out with the rating system, Howard Lincoln famously said that Night Trap would never be on a Nintendo system. But yet, here we have Night Trap for the Nintendo Switch. It's one of the controversial games. It's nowhere near as violent or sexist as they say. However, there is levels to that, and it's, not one of those things. It hasn't aged well as a game. It's a FMV game, full motion video game, where you basically point and hit a button. Concept of the game is you're looking at through security cameras at this house, and you're trying to trap the bad guys before they attack these sorority sisters. What can I say? It was made for the Sega CD system, which Sega CD produced a ton of full-motion video games. Other than the notoriety, this really isn't a great one. Another reason why I bought it, Dana Plato from Different Strokes is the main actress in it, which is really cool. I liked Different Strokes as a child, which is going to date me as to how old I am. I'm an old man. But overall, yeah, I bought it more for what it is than the game itself. With that being said, let's go into our ratings for it. Graphic-wise, I'm going to give it a 5. They really cleaned up the full-motion video for this release. It really looks crisp. It looks good. It looks at least DVD quality, which is a step up from the original Sega CD release of it, which, was a little bit choppy at the time. It looked amazing. Now, 25 years later, choppy as hell. Gameplay, I'm going to give it a 1. There isn't much to it other than switching cameras and hitting traps. Difficulty, I'm going to give it a 3. It is very hard going between the scenes because you have to go from camera to camera, and if you're trying to trap everybody, I've not known anybody that's got a perfect score in this game. And I had this back in the day of the Sega CD times. I think my friend Jason also had it, and if not, I let him borrow it. But neither one of us could ever get a perfect score. There isn't much to it. I believe it's only about a 3-hour game all the way through. I haven't replayed this one all the way through. I've just played enough to get acclimated back to it. So the difficulty, I'm going to give it a 3. Replay value, I'm going to give it a 1. Once you play through this game, there's really not a reason to go back to it. This will be the first time I've gone back to it in 25 years. There's not been a real want or need to, other than the two things I mentioned. Music, the ambient music actually is pretty good, so I'm going to give that a 3. Overall, I give you the game a 2 itself. If you're going to buy something like this specific version, you're going to buy it for that, then it's limited run, and you're going to buy it for the Howard Lincoln controversy. Now, one thing I wanted to show you guys is, which is cool, limited run does this with a lot of their games. See that? You have 2 options for the cover. 1, this was like the box art from the game, and 2, that's like the actual Sega CD insert, which is really cool. I like that they do that, and as you can see here, got Dana Plato actually here, and then I guess a cartoon version of Dana there. I kind of like the cartoon one. Usually I like this version, the one that has a throwback-esque look to it, but I like the cartoon version on this better because it reminds me of 60s horror comic books. which I like comic books and I like, that kind of thing. Kind of like a Swamp Thing kind of vibe. But overall, I know it's not a retro game, but kind of is. It's a remake of a retro game, so I'll allow it. And besides, it's my video anyway. But anyway, overall, got some pretty good pickups. One game I know is terrible, and 3 pretty good games. So, pretty happy with what I picked up over the past couple days. I'm going to have fun playing these. I'm going to play all of them all the way through. Some of them I'm going to go back to more often. Others I'm going to go back to probably periodically. And one, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years from now I'll go back to play it after I play it through again. But like I said, that's not the reason I bought it. I bought it for the limited run logo because I wanted at least one limited run game in my collection, and I bought it for the controversy. That's why I bought it. But basically, with all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Retro Game Treasure Hunting.